I'm calling you out, big tech. I'm calling you out. Why? Because the Australian Associated Press has been specifically targeting the 29th biggest political Facebook page. Now, which Facebook page is that? Well, it's Riccardo's. A lot of you don't know this because I don't tell you. I haven't told you on purpose because of this stuff.
Excellent control there, Joel.
Thank you, Riccardo. I'm trying to keep it child friendly as much as possible. The Australian Associated Press are certified to conduct fact checks on what's going on in Australia, basically. Now, these fact checks are being used by Facebook to censor your page, basically, whether that be bringing down the traction that your posts get, or whether that be the completely banning your posts outright and banning your page that you've put a lot of effort into. Now, guys, Riccardo's Facebook page, as I said, it is the 29th biggest in Australia. It's almost as big as Gladys's in New South Wales, which is very big. He's nearing 100,000 followers. Now, you can't tell that because the likes are significantly lower. They're at 27,000, which is a big difference. But there's no difference between a like and a follow because you can still see the content when it's a follow. So the reach that Riccardo has is almost as big as Gladys's.
It's almost like people don't like babies being killed. Let's see if more Australians are against killing babies.
Exactly. So on my left here, I've got a leader of a political party. I've got someone who has run in many elections and will continue to run most likely in future elections. Yet he's been. I'm calling this honestly targeted, and I'm going to quickly touch on some of these fact checks. It's not that I hate fact checks; they can actually be quite useful, and I learn a lot from them. It's the next step. It's when the AAP starts specifically targeting our videos and then Facebook picks it up. That's the problem. Facebook picks it up and says, on these grounds, you've violated our terms and conditions multiple times. Your page is gone. Hundreds of thousands of followers, your page is gone. You're a rival political party? Nah, no more. You cannot reach millions of people on this platform. We've reached 6.5 million people in the last 3 weeks just on that platform. You can no longer reach this many people with your videos and your very radical views. Now, this is the fact checks we're talking about here, okay? Now, there's some good points raised in this. And you know me, I'm an honest guy. I'll tell you where I was wrong, and I was wrong in this first one. The segment, and you can still find this, it's not banned. The segment is called, Did Scott Morrison Help Joe Biden Violate the Logan Act? And this is obviously the call where Joe Biden called a number of foreign leaders, including Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison. And we made fun of Scott Morrison, and so did Romeo Georges make fun of Scott Morrison. So it was an open-ended question when we were going to investigate that. Now, long story short, this was a very tongue-in-cheek segment. The reason why I said, what's the Logan Act? I'm sorry, guys. I explained it in the segment. The Logan Act is basically, and these are my words, it's an ancient, you know what's funny? They quoted me, so I don't even have to remember what I said. It's an ancient act that doesn't matter. It was, and they actually say this in the article, they prove that point. It was passed in Congress in 1798, and there have never been any convictions on it. And this is why it's useful that they do this. I'm like, thank you for doing this. You just proved my point. My point was, this basically, the point of the act means that you cannot talk with foreign leaders if you're not in power. You cannot represent the United States if you don't have the grounds to. Now, I said that it's funny that this should happen because General Michael Flynn, who was the incoming foreign
National Security Advisor,
he was coming in and he was obviously getting ready and preparing the transition process, and he started talking to people on the National Security Council around the world, and he was talking about votes and foreign policy and this and that. And basically he was talking about the transition process. Now, during this time when Trump had won the election, there were talks held in the White House that there are notes of and photos of, where basically Joe Biden says, can't we just use the Logan Act on this guy? And all I said in the episode was, look, Joe Biden, I think this is an ancient act and it shouldn't mean anything. But by your own standard, you should be convicted by this, basically. I don't think either of you should be convicted. It was very tongue-in-cheek. I was very joking about it, if you didn't notice from the first 15 seconds, because I had Romeo do a very funny impression of ScoMo. Now, despite that, they thought that this fact check, that this post has no basis in fact. That's what you guys said. I wasn't saying that Joe Biden violated the Logan Act. I wasn't saying that. It was a very tongue-in-cheek thing. Now, is it right to compare Joe Biden and Michael Flynn and their cases? Probably not. And that's where I admit I'm wrong. But this is my problem, guys. Why can't I make a correction like I just did? Why is it that you have to be an official fact check, never contact me? I don't care what you said. You never contacted me, and I am contactable. There's no name on this article. It's just by AAP fact check. At least put your name and email so I can email you. I can't even contact you like that. I've got to call you generically. Why is it that you get to put this, I call it a hit piece in a way. It's a good fact check. It's good writing. You can put this out. I can't make the correction. Facebook sees it. I don't see this article from November. This is from November. I don't see it till last week. And because Facebook brings it to my attention. Like, why doesn't Facebook go after these articles? This is an article from The Guardian. It's on Monica Smith, my good friend Monica. Now, I'm not simping out here. This article has a correction made in it. Why is it they can make corrections because they've misreported on her, but I can't? Why doesn't Facebook ban The Guardian? Just read the first line. Here's the first line. How an anti-mask firebrand fans the right's flames against Dan Andrews online. This is the first sentence. After she failed to find fame as a Survivor contestant in 2017, Monica Smith has found another high-profile career as a firebrand of the anti-mask wearing movement. Why? Why are you doing this? Now, I get it. You want to stop the spread of misinformation. And here's another case of that. Just recently, 2 days ago, the University of Queensland COVID-19 vaccine claims fail truth test. This was a segment we did with Riccardo. Riccardo was talking about the vaccine that was done in Queensland. He got a couple of the numbers wrong, possibly. And also they challenged us on PCR tests, saying that they do actually work. I know. Have you read this?
No, I've not seen it.
It's a long piece. Sorry. And they said the conclusion they came to was content that has no basis in fact. Again, if it's wrong, that's okay. We will make the correction. You did not contact me. You did not ask for a correction or a comment. You did not allow us to correct it. Instead, you're a fact checker for Facebook with no name on here, and you put this online in order to get us censored. Is that what you're doing? If not, please contact me. Again, I haven't heard from you yet. I'm hearing this from Facebook. Contact me just so I can make a correction. I'm going to look through this properly because it's only from 2 days ago, and I'm going to make the corrections where needed if I'm wrong, but if I'm not, then this is entirely crap. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. I reckon there's some problems in here. If there's problems, allow us to fix it. Don't censor us. Why?
Isn't it funny how the mainstream narrative is error-free? There's never a fact check that came out and said, well, guess what? The inventor of the PCR test specifically stated that this shouldn't be used to do what you're doing with it.
Yeah. Fact check that.
Fact check that, folks. PCR test is, as described by the inventor, inappropriate to test for COVID.
And this is the thing. This is the thing, guys. No one is above criticism.
No, of course not.
We all should be criticized. That's how I became, I'm not pumping my own tires up here. That's how I became knowledgeable on politics. It was from listening to the left and the right, finding where the truth lies, and then relying on that as a rock. That's how I move forward. That's how I get things wrong. I don't want to be wrong a minute longer than I have to be. That's why I take your fact checks very seriously. And I wish you sent them to me or contacted me for a comment. So this is what happens with censorship. Because I'm calling you out here. I'm telling you, keep fact checking me. I love it. There was some very useful information here. But I'm calling you out. Why? I don't want you to censor the page. If you censor the page and get it banned, do you know what's going to happen? We're not going anywhere. We're not giving up. we've demonstrated our commitment to the country and pursuing truth. Excuse me. In this case, we have a situation where you are trying to ban a podcast that is helping de-radicalize people. How many platforms and shows actually de-radicalize people? That is a question you need to ask yourself. Because I've got proof from the left and the right, testimonies that long, 2 pages each, basically detailing what we're doing. Because what happens is when you censor us, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to go to BitChute. We're going to go to Parler. We're going to go to all these platforms out of your reach. Then you have no ability to fact check, and we're gone. And then what happens, just like with prison, is those same people become even more radicalized. Like in prison, the chances of them reoffending is even higher, because what happens, it's not rocket science, the teacher will tell you this. If you put a bunch of naughty kids, like 5 naughty kids together, they'll make each other worse. If you put a good kid who perhaps did nothing wrong and you put him amongst, the average of his 5 friends, it's like that saying he will become like the naughty kids. That's just how it works, unless he's of very high moral character, which is very rare to come by. Now, if you do this, and I'm warning you, and I'm not trying to give you any pleasure out of this, if you do this, the people will get worse from this, because you are empowering the radicals. We are de-radicalizing people. Censorship stops moderation. I can't bring people down to earth on things like the Q stuff, because as we acknowledge this episode, there's a lot of Q people that go crazy. There's some truth, but a lot of them are crazy. And I help to de-radicalize them, as I've got testimonies. There's truth to it. Let me just read you some of the comments. This is from, I'm calling him Billy. I've got his real name here. Both your commentary confirm that this radicalization was nothing more than a tactic to create division as well as divide the country. Having been able to listen to really effective arguments, I think I'm finally rid of a lot of dangerous and poisonous ideologies. I've got so many more like this. So many more, but I won't bore the viewers. I'm happy to share you with these in a redacted version. But this is the problem. If you censor us, we can't continue that work. I don't get radicals, because that was a lefty that I de-radicalized. There's also white nationalists we've de-radicalized. So stop censoring us.
It's almost like they want to keep dividing us. They don't want real de-radicalization. They want to cause a fight, man versus woman, black versus white, rich versus poor. They want to divide and conquer. That's their entire modus operandi. There's no artifice. There's no difficulty in seeing what they're doing. They are dividing us at every possible level, child from parent, Jew versus Christian. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
It's very frustrating, because I know where this is going. You're going to end up, because what happens is, what you did was you censored the Q people. They all went into an echo chamber. They weren't challenged by moderates like me. And then, because I've got to moderate my own side, just like the progressives have to moderate the loonies on their side that say there's 12 years left for the earth before it blows up. But they don't moderate their side. At least I do my job and moderate. What are you doing? This is not healthy. I'm not going off against the AAP. You guys do it. You've done a good job. I'm going off at you because you're working with Facebook to censor people so that they lose their accounts. We're not going anywhere. They tried this with Alex Jones in 2018. They got rid of him from everything, and they did it all at the same time. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all within a 24-hour period. And once they did that, he ended up creating an app which became more popular than the CNN app. It had like 6 million downloads. You didn't censor him. It didn't work. In fact, he ended up being at the inauguration at the Capitol on the 6th of January. It never happened. You never censored him. Similarly, you're not going to censor us. We're not stopping. I told you a long time ago, you got to cut my head off if I'm going to stop. With that in mind, I get it. You want to de-radicalize people and you want to help suppress misinformation. I'm trying to tell you, we're actually already doing that. And I've got the numbers to show it. But let's not talk about this anymore. But it's very enraging.
Who controls AAP?
I don't know.
AAP is one of the single sources of data on the planet. I won't call it news because it's not.
Yeah.
But AAP is one massive false flag operation. And as we've said before, all your news and entertainment is controlled by 6 entities globally.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of evidence, folks. Just look it up and check it up.
Yeah.
Word for word for word. Thousands of channels say exactly the same thing. We have videos, and they're online. This is just before the Iraq War, that the Canadian Prime Minister and the Australian Prime Minister, word for word, gave exactly the same speech to their respective parliaments. Word for word.
Wow.
And it's not because the points were similar, identical. Our politicians, our bureaucracies, our judiciary, our military, the constabulary, the universities, academia, you name it, all of it controlled.
Interesting. It's very frustrating about this, what we're up against, but yeah, this is where we are.
This is where we need to be. No, this is a good place.
No, it's a good place.
And this is really important.
And we do have a plan.
This is important
Yeah.
because I want everybody, and just put in mind those people that are worrying about Trump.